relationship between Melissa and Lisa got off on the wrong foot right from the start. Melissa and Andrew got married against his mother's will. Lisa believed that her son's girlfriend was not worthy of being part of their family. They were quite well off, while the newly minted daughter-in-law was virtually from a village and didn't even have a proper education. Melissa had graduated from medical college and had been working as a nurse in a state hospital for several years. That's where she met Andrew. Andrew was vacationing with friends in a small resort town. They were having a great time skiing, but during one descent, Andrew made a bad jump and broke his ankle. When he fell, he also hit his head hard, so they kept him in the hospital for a few days. That's where Andrew met his future wife. He liked her right away. She was pretty, cheerful, and above all, she cast his leg as if it were the most precious treasure on earth. Although it wasn't part of her job, she was drawn to the patient like a magnet, and she visited him every day. When he was leaving the hospital, Andrew asked Melissa out on a date, and she agreed. Andrew returned home with Melissa in tow. Even though he had only known the girl for a few days, it felt like they had known each other forever. Melissa felt the same way about Andrew. They were already making future plans and planning their wedding. Leaving her hometown with Andrew, Melissa didn't immediately realize what she had done. She went to a completely new city with a person she barely knew. Moreover, she had quit her job, which had cost her a lot of effort to land. It was a coveted position, with many local girls wanting to work there. But Melissa gave it all up for Andrew. She never regretted her decision. Andrew turned out to be a very good person. He loved Melissa, cherished her, and even protected her from his own mother. When Lisa saw whom her son had brought into their home, she was, to put it mildly, shocked. She couldn't believe that her beloved son could fall in love with such a nobody, who had neither a penny nor a place to call her own. She tried to dissuade him from his hasty decision, but her son was determined to go through with it. Then the woman switched over to the future daughter-in-law, thinking she could maybe persuade her to leave Andrew alone. She even offered her money, but that was a bad move. Melissa was infuriated. "Do you really think I would take your money and leave just like that? I love your son and will never give him up. Don't you dare offer me such a thing again." Of course, Melissa told her beloved about his mother's scheming behind his back, and Andrew got very angry with his mother, so much so that they never fully reconciled. Thus, the mother harbored a great grudge against her future daughter-in-law, deciding that she was the reason her relationship with her son was ruined. After the wedding, the newlyweds settled in the family home. Naturally, Lisa was less than happy with this arrangement, but the house they lived in had been bequeathed to Andrew by his late father. Lisa couldn't evict him. She had no legal right to do that. But at the same time, living under the same roof with a daughter-in-law that she hated was unbearable for her. Lisa constantly mocked Melissa, said unpleasant things right to her face, and tried to turn Andrew against her. But the daughter-in-law was no pushover. She could stand up for herself when necessary, was quick on the draw, and always gave her mother-in-law an instant rebuff. A real war unfolded between the two women. Relations between the mother and son were virtually non-existent. Andrew always took his wife's side, clashing with his mother and demanding that she leave his family alone. Amidst the constant stress, Lisa's health started to deteriorate. However, she did not admit this to either her son or daughter-in-law. She did not want to appear weak. When her condition became critical, Andrew finally noticed his mother's state. He called an ambulance. The doctors diagnosed her with a nervous breakdown and advised seeing a psychotherapist. Additionally, heart and blood pressure problems were discovered. They wanted to hospitalize her, but she refused. She said she would not leave the house as long as her daughter-in-law lived there. Then they suggested hiring a nurse to administer all the necessary IVs and injections. Melissa, being a medical professional, offered herself for the role. Despite her dislike for her mother-in-law, she felt sorry for her, and she was a medical professional after all. She genuinely wanted to help, but Lisa categorically refused. "She'll poison me for sure. No way." Even in such a state, Lisa did not miss a chance to quarrel with Melissa. A caregiver was hired that same day, but she didn't last long. Lisa had a very nasty disposition, and few people could endure it. Within a month, 5 nurses were replaced, each enduring to the last. But none could stay longer than 4 or 5 days with this woman. Andrew was desperate. Several medical workers had already refused him. No one wanted to care for his mother. In the professional environment, rumors spread quickly, making it very difficult to find a new caregiver. Then something terrible happened. In search of a new nurse for his mother, Andrew went to another city, hoping to find someone there. It had been raining since morning. The roads were slippery, and visibility was zero. At one moment, as he was trying to make a turn, Andrew's car skidded. He lost control and the car veered off the road. Andrew was driving at high speed, so the car flipped several times before coming to a stop. There was no chance of survival. Andrew died. Lisa could not cope with such a loss and had a stroke. She was urgently hospitalized. The woman was in very poor condition and even had to miss her own son's funeral. Melissa took care of the funeral arrangements and spent the rest of her time at the hospital by her mother-in-law's side. She instantly forgot about past quarrels and grievances. Melissa wanted to do everything possible to help Lisa recover. However, after the stroke, Lisa did not recognize anyone. She couldn't even move. She just lay there, staring at one spot all day long. Lisa spent the first month in the hospital, and then the doctor discharged her home. Now everything depends on you, the doctor told Melissa. Your mother-in-law has no will to live. She's not fighting. If I were you, I'd prepare for a second funeral. But Melissa had no intention of giving up. She fed Lisa, massaged her, and took her for walks. In the evenings, she read books to her and told her various fascinating stories. She had to quit her job to spend all her time with her mother-in-law. She simply couldn't abandon this woman to fate, as she was the only person who reminded her of her beloved husband. Gradually, Lisa began to recover. She could now feed herself with a spoon. It was a bit clumsy, like a small child would do it, but it was already a significant improvement. Soon, her mother-in-law started showing emotions. Although she still couldn't speak, Melissa could at least understand what she wanted. A month later, Lisa could already sit up in bed and utter a few words. Little by little, the woman was recovering. One day, when Melissa was reading her favorite novel to her mother-in-law, the woman said, "Stop." Melissa jumped to the bedside. "Lisa, are you feeling unwell?" Her mother-in-law forced a smile. "No, please sit next to me." The daughter-in-law obediently sat down. "Don't interrupt. It's hard for me to speak." Melissa had learned to understand her mother-in-law from half a word, so she just nodded for her to continue. "There's a notebook over there. Find the address, Jason." Lisa closed her eyes for a moment. It was difficult for her to speak. Making an effort, and she continued, "My son. Please find him. Tell him I am very sorry." Then the woman smiled and passed out. Melissa quickly called an ambulance. The doctors arrived very quickly, but could only pronounce her dead. A few days after the funeral, Melissa remembered her mother-in-law's last words. She found the notebook she had mentioned and discovered Jason's address. She also found a note from Lisa and a birth certificate. The note revealed that Andrew had a twin brother. At the hospital, she was told he was born sick, and she decided to give him up, keeping only one child. Only recently had she wanted to find her other son, and finally, she had managed to discover his address. It turned out that the boy had been adopted by a very good family who helped him recover. Now he lived practically next door, in a neighboring town. Without hesitation, Melissa got into her car and drove to the address her mother-in-law provided. She wanted to fulfill Lisa's last request and asked Jason for forgiveness on her behalf for having abandoned him. When the door opened, Melissa went numb. She was looking at an exact replica of her Andrew. Caught off guard, she fainted. The last thing she remembered was strong male arms catching her just in time. She came to her senses on a couch. In front of her was a man who looked exactly like Andrew. She explained to him what had brought her to his home. The man was initially confused, but then he said, "Well, I'm glad my biological mother didn't forget about me. It's a shame I didn't get to meet her in person. I'd like to know more about my mother and my brother. Will you tell me?" "Of course," Melissa replied with a smile. They talked all night. "You know, around the time Andrew died, I felt terrible, as if a part of me had disappeared. I sensed my twin brother's death from a distance. Then, a girl appeared to me in a dream and told me everything would be all right. Since that day, I've felt restless. In every woman I met, I saw the features of this unknown girl, and today, when I saw you, I realized it was you, Melissa." The woman smiled. "Not long ago, I dreamed of Andrew. He told me he hadn't left me alone, and that soon I would meet someone who would help me overcome the pain of loss. It seems he was talking about you.